Robert's journey will take him to many of the key locations mentioned in the Gospels, including Bethlehem and Jerusalem. But the story of Jesus, as told in the Gospels, begins in the village of Nazareth in the region of Galilee. Today, Nazareth is a bustling city, the center of Arab life in modern Israel. 2,000 years ago, it was a tiny village of perhaps a few hundred people. Among its residents was the young Mary. In his film, Zeffirelli cast Olivia Hussey, who he had already made a star in Romeo and Juliet, in the role of the Virgin Mary. According to the Gospel of Luke, Mary was living in Nazareth when an event took place that would change her world and ours forever. Christians call it the Annunciation.
Who are you?
In the Gospel of Luke, we have an episode in which the angel Gabriel appears to Mary and tells her that she's going to conceive.
Behold, the handmaiden of the Lord.
She submits to the will of the Lord.
May it be done unto me according to your word.
The Holy Spirit then impregnates Mary, and she becomes pregnant.
Most melodious. The bells of the Church of Annunciation.
2,000 years later, this church in Nazareth stands as a memorial to Jesus' divine origin. Robert has come here to search for the history behind the story with Professor Helen Bond. The church encloses what is thought to be the remains of Mary's house, where the Annunciation took place. The exact spot is marked with an altar. But what can we really know about Mary at this point?
Mary, in that society, as indeed all pre-industrial societies, would have been extremely young. She might well have only been about 13 or 14.
Still a teenager, Mary is engaged to Joseph, but not yet married, when she becomes pregnant.
Would she have been ostracized?
It depends how much historical value you put on the birth stories. If there is some historical value there, then yes, it would be extremely scandalous, and in theory, she could be put to death.
In the Gospel of Matthew, Joseph is haunted by what could happen to Mary. Ancient Jewish law is clear. If a man marries a woman who was found not to be a virgin, she should be stoned to death. But then Joseph was contacted by an angel of the Lord.
Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary as your wife. It is by the Holy Spirit that she has conceived.
Guided by this message, Joseph persuades the village to spare Mary. They marry, and he becomes the father to their unborn child. The Annunciation is a remarkable story. There is no historical evidence to prove or disprove it happened. But the story does have an important role to show that Jesus' parents were also touched by God.
When the Christian storytellers were telling their stories about Jesus, they were telling about him in the ways that other people told stories of divine men. As someone who's supernaturally born to the union of a divinity and a human being, who does all of these miracles and at the end of his life ascends to heaven.